eTIMS. So as we were rolling, sorry for that. As we were rolling out TIMS, we received a lot of stakeholder feedback and a lot of concerns from the taxpayers who were not able to buy the TIMS devices because of the cost and also because of the technological advancement. We needed also to upgrade our modalities of invoicing. So our management considered a lot of benchmarking with the best practices in the market, and that's why we rolled out the eTIMS project. So the main difference between the two implementation per se is that the TIMS implementation, maybe we can just say TIMS is the tax invoice management system, is a device-based one. A taxpayer, a VAT registered taxpayer must have had a device for them to do the invoicing through the TIMS platform. So on the other side, the eTIMS option provides for a software solution for taxpayers that they can be able to use to do their invoicing. So for eTIMS, you don't have to have a gadget that you'll use to generate the invoice, especially for the option for the online platform, where we are saying taxpayers who are in the service industry or are providing vertable services should be able to do invoicing, which at whichever level or whichever, even if you don't have a device, you can log onto your laptop, you can go to a cyber, you can log onto any machine and generate invoices. So you don't have to have the normal, Brenda, we can hear you. Then you don't have to have the normal devices so that you can be able to do the invoicing. So eTIMS is mainly targeting the active VAT taxpayers who have not onboarded TIMS by upgrading their ETR devices. And this was a line that we used to use when we were rolling out eTIMS, but it's correct to say that at the moment we are encouraging any taxpayer who is a VAT registered taxpayer to onboard eTIMS. So the pilot phase of the rollout of eTIMS commenced in February this year. We have been onboarding more taxpayers as we move on. I can see Fatma saying there's no sound. Brenda, confirm if you can hear me.
Sound is perfect. We can hear you loud and clearly. Maybe Fatma, you might need to check your sound devices, but Liz Vera, we can hear you loud and clear.
All right, so we proceed to the next slide.
All right, doing that shortly, Liz Vera, let's just go to the next slide. Yes.
All right, so even as Brenda goes to the next slide, that's okay. We can now look at the objectives of eTIMS. What are the objectives of eTIMS? So first, we'll say that eTIMS is here to provide additional options to taxpayers. Remember the initial ETR machines, you had to buy a device, and if you're a taxpayer who does invoicing maybe twice a month or twice a year, then buying an ETR device did not sound economical. So after several feedback and also benchmarking, we realized that we needed to add more options for taxpayers to be able to do invoicing at minimal cost. So the other objective of eTIMS is also to minimize the cost of compliance. We all know, and every taxpayer in this forum is aware, that eTIMS is absolutely free. If you come to our premises for installation, you will be able to be assisted at no cost. Unlike the initial ETR machines, the taxpayers had to part with some amount of money so that they could be able to buy the ETR devices. So this is also in line with making sure that our taxpayers are compliant and they are generating invoices that are eTIMS and TIMS compliant. The other objective is to increase tax compliance and accountability. With the additional option of invoicing, taxpayers can be able to monitor and enhance their compliance level because invoices are transmitted to KRA in real time or near real time. Notably is that if you have internet connectivity at the point of generating your invoice, then the invoice will reach KRA in real time. So there are other options, like if you have the device or if you have the application, if you have the application installed on your on your machine, sometimes you might not have internet at the point of generating an invoice, but once you restore your internet connectivity, then the invoices will automatically be transmitted to KRA. The other objective is that groundwork to expand and reach more taxpayers has also been put in place. So I believe that that is one of the biggest objectives that we are going to achieve, because we all know that the finance bill is out, and if you go through it keenly, you can see that we are onboarding other tax heads that include TOT. And as time goes by, we will make sure that all expenses that taxpayers claim in other tax heads have been generated, the invoices have been generated through eTIMS or eTIMS. So the other objective here is addressing the missing trader phenomena. I'm sure that we all know about the missing trader, where some taxpayers always claim, I bought from person X, but when you ask them where is that person X located, they are not able to track, or they don't know where that person is. So it is there are two ways to look at it. First, it could be that the taxpayer is honest. Absolutely, they cannot track down where they bought their goods or services, or it is intentional. So with eTIMS and TIMS, we are able to track all that, and there will be no missing trader. I know that missing trader is a wide net. It's something that cannot be solved only on eTIMS, but we will largely solve some of those problems. Remember, moving forward, when you're claiming invoices, we are not going to allow you to claim input tax from taxpayers who have not registered on eTIMS. And remember, the invoice numbers that you're going to use while you're filing your returns must be invoice numbers that have been generated through the system. So that way we are going to address, to a large extent, the missing trader phenomena. So the last objective here is to increase tax revenue. I know matters tax is very controversial today in Kenya, but we believe that our mandate as KRA is to collect revenue. So with these additional options of taxpayers invoicing, it is our belief that the tax revenue will be increased, because we are hoping to expand our tax base and also to net most of our taxpayers. So Brenda, kindly move to the next slide. So I know there are so many objectives that we have in place, but this is just a wrap and just a brief of what we intend to achieve. We'll also be able to discuss in the course of this presentation some of the benefits that you, the VAT taxpayers, will be able to realize from us rolling out this project. So the next slide is about the benefits to you, the taxpayers, just as I had started discussing it. First, we are hoping that with the rolling out of electronic invoicing and additional options of invoicing, there will be a fair business environment. I'm sure most of us here know that you could go to some of these business premises that you patronize, and an entity sells the same good as the other entity, whereas the prices vary a lot. Sometimes you go even to a business premise and they ask you that if you need an invoice that is TIMS compliant, then the prices will be higher. So most of us are human, and we intend to incline to the business entities that charge us less. But with eTIMS, we are going to make sure that if your invoices do not pass through our system, then you will not be able to claim input tax, and you will not also get your tax refunds. So we believe that with that, we are going to try and foster a fair business environment, other factors held constant. The other benefit is that there will be flexibility, that is to provide for variation of devices to support taxpayers at minimal cost. As we progress, we'll also be able to see that with eTIMS, some of these solutions, you are able to generate invoices through your phone. So we have a solution that taxpayers are able to download and install on their phone, and they will be able to generate the invoices. So the beauty about this is that no taxpayer or no VAT registered taxpayer can claim that they cannot generate compliant tax invoices because of the cost. We believe that every business premise, at least you have a phone, or you have a laptop, or whichever gadget that you will be able to use. The other benefit is that there will be faster processing of VAT refunds. What actually delays VAT refunds is the time we spend to scrutinize the details given to us by the taxpayers. So with all this data sitting with us, we'll be able to process your VAT refunds very fast, and we will need minimal confirmation from your side, because we all know that data is king. So if we have all this data with us, we'll be able to do VAT refunds faster, so that taxpayers can use that money in their businesses. An additional feature that we have on eTIMS is the stock management module, which we are saying that this will also help taxpayers to maintain their inventory, and it will also assist us from our end, because we realize that taxpayers have been claiming or remaining in credit positions, because they claim that they buy devices, they buy their services, they buy their goods, but they're not selling. But with the stock management module that we have, we'll be able to monitor all that. A benefit that is work in progress and we are working towards achieving is the simplified VAT return filing. We hope that once most 80% of taxpayers are on board, we'll be able to file your VAT returns on your behalf. So currently there's an integration going through, so that we make sure that all the tax information that pertains to the VAT registered taxpayers are already pre-populated. So there will come a time when filing of VAT returns will be automatically done, because you generate your invoices through the system, you purchase your goods through the system, your imports are through the system. So the beauty is that we'll have all the details that concern your tax liability in the system, so we'll be able to file the returns for you. But as at now, this is work in progress. We are still doing a lot of integration, and once we are done, then this will be rolled out and a clear communication will be sent to the taxpayers. The other benefit is that there will be non-intrusive verification of tax processes. It's important to note that whenever we need a lot of information from taxpayers, sometimes our officers come to your business premises to verify the data you send us or some of the information that you give us. So with eTIMS, most of those data will be sitting with us, and we will have all that data. So we don't need to come to your business premise, so that you allocate time, you give us space, we take your time that you should be using in your business, or any other resource that you should be using in your business to help us do data verification. So there will be no intrusive verification unless there's an absolute need why we should visit your premise. And we all know that the key area of today, we are here to facilitate trade. So we are making sure that really we don't sabotage your work, but we allow you to do business so that we can also get our taxes. So the other benefits to the government and KRA, I will just rush through this because it's self-explanatory. One is to enhance revenue collection, which is our core mandate, and also to authenticate VAT refunds paid. We have discussed that the VAT refunds paid, we needed a lot of verification of the documents that you send us. So with all this data sitting with us, the refunds that we will be making will be very authentic and accurate. So there will also be improved ease of doing business, because we are giving you more options of invoicing. We are supporting you. So we believe that the business climate will improve. There will be good governance in the field of taxation. There will be improved ability to focus on revenue collection, because remember, I had said that most of that data will be sitting with us. So if you have data, we are already doing a lot of data analytics on it. We can do both forecast data analytics, or we can still do analytics to give us more information on what to expect. We'll also be able to do economic analysis and prediction based on accurate data that taxpayers are giving us. So we believe that with all the information that we have, we'll be able to do a lot of predictions and also submit the same data to the relevant authorities like Treasury, so that these can inform, or these can make them make informed decisions. So to KRA, we are saying that we will enhance efficiency in service delivery. As I had said, that the KRA today, we are concerned about the service we are giving to taxpayers. Our main motive is to offer you service that is excellent, and we want to try as much as possible, not just to collect revenue, but to collect it in a dignified way, to give you back the service that you require, because without your taxes, really, this country cannot be run. So in addition, we are saying that there will be reduction of VAT fiscal fraud. We know that there's a lot of fraud going on, and with all this automation, then this will reduce greatly. There will be timely transfer. There will be timely transfer of VAT fiscal data. Remember, we have discussed that data will be transmitted to KRA in real time or near real time. There will be enhancement of tax compliance. There will also be reduction in compliance management costs, because really we will not have to be going to your premises, or there will be minimal movement between the taxpayer's premise and also here. And also we are hoping that with the data we have, we'll be able to increase our tax base and also just to net in most of the informal sector. There will also be enhanced analytics and risk management that will also help us to make a lot of informed decisions. Next slide. So those are some of the benefits. And in addition, we are saying that what are the benefits to the general public? One is that there will be a lot of trust between the customer and the business entity. Today, whenever you go to purchase a good or a service, or to whichever business entity you patronize, whenever you're given a tax invoice or a receipt, there's always a QR code at the bottom of that tax invoice. So if that entity has charged you a VAT amount, or you have seen that the VAT amount has been included, then you should be able to verify if the tax invoice is authentic or not. So assuming you and I go to these business entities, and all the times you're given a tax invoice that has a VAT on it, and you verify and realize, oh, for sure my taxes have been remitted to the relevant authorities, then there's likely to be more trust between you and those business entities. Unlike some of these businessmen out there, they give you a tax invoice and you cannot even verify that the VAT they have charged you will be remitted to KRA. So we have had instances where even the taxpayers themselves call out on those business entities so that they can be able to be given a tax invoice that is valid, which is very commendable, because remember, compliance is a two-way check. So once you verify that those businesses give you correct invoices, even as a business person, when you're going to use that tax invoice, then you're sure that at the time of claiming your input tax, then you will not have any queries from KRA stating that your tax invoices are invalid. The other benefit to the general public is that it will also help the public also to participate in enhancing tax compliance. We have talked about the public, the people, you and I. When you go out there and you get a tax invoice that is not valid, do you call out on those business entities? Do you request them that if you have charged me VAT, then I believe you should be able to give me an invoice that is valid? So that is what we are encouraging, and taxpayers should also ensure that they should ensure that they get invoices that are eTIMS compliant. So the other benefit there is that it will also foster patriotism, which we believe that when everybody in this country, be it people who are employed, business people, people who are working in the informal sector, if every one of us is paying their fair share of taxes, then we are likely to achieve more. So the next slide is on the eligibility criteria for eTIMS. So I'll give Brenda some time to fix the screen even as we proceed. So who is qualified, or rather, how do you know you're qualified for eTIMS? We have the following criteria. However, my disclaimer on this would be that anybody who is a VAT registered taxpayer should be able to qualify for the eTIMS solutions. So as we advance in this presentation, I will still be able to share with you how you will be able to know which option you're best suited for. So first are the taxpayers who have not onboarded TIMS or upgraded their ETR. I know there has been a lot of queries around taxpayers who had not onboarded TIMS, and when they were put on special table, they rushed to go and buy the TIMS devices. So we had a category of taxpayers who are payment and credit filers. They did not onboard TIMS despite the many calls we made to them. We wrote emails to them, but they did not onboard TIMS. So their pins were put under special table. And we required that once your PIN is put under special table, please do not buy a TIMS device. You're required to onboard eTIMS, which is absolutely free. So the other category is for taxpayers in the process of complying but are facing challenges with integration with the TIMS ETR devices due to complexity of their billing systems. Some of those taxpayers who are trying to comply with TIMS who are not able to because they realized that their point of sales were not compatible with the different TIMS, the different types of ETR machines are also encouraged to come on board eTIMS. So that category, we are oblivious of the fact that some of those integrations had issues, especially people who had old their computers or the systems they were using were for the old series. So that category are really encouraged to come on board eTIMS. The other category includes taxpayers who have businesses but are technologically challenged, i.e. they do not have computers and they do manual invoicing. So you can just buy a Bluetooth printer and let the app be installed on your phone, and then you can always do invoicing wherever you are. So it's important to note that whenever you're choosing a solution, don't just choose for the mobile app, assuming you generate 1,000 invoices in a day, then the mobile option would not be the best solution for you, just because of the interface and because of how invoicing with your phone might be too slow. So we encourage taxpayers with minimal invoices to be the ones who download the apps on their phone. The other category here includes taxpayers dealing in bulk invoicing and facing capacity or performance issues with invoice transmission. We have a unique sector of taxpayers who do invoicing. The last time we checked, there was a taxpayer who was doing invoicing, like generating invoices of 1,000 invoices in an hour. So this includes the large taxpayers who are also encouraged to onboard the software option. And the last category is for voluntary taxpayers, who we are saying that they will be able to, any taxpayer who is a VAT registered taxpayer, whether you had onboarded TIMS, you can still be able to onboard eTIMS. Next slide, Brenda. So what are the different solutions for the eTIMS software, the eTIMS software? So we have quite a number, and I will take a little longer here because I know this is what we are supposed to understand. And the beauty about this eTIMS information is that it is on KRA website. It is in public domain. We have published user guides that can be able to guide you. We are going to upload videos, audios that taxpayers can constantly refer to. So make use of the information out there on KRA website so that you can be well informed. So the first option is the eTIMS PayPoint windows. This is suitable for taxpayers who are basically selling goods at a single location, or they have one cashier till. These can mainly be downloaded either on a computer, that is a desktop, or a laptop with Windows 10 and above. And it's important to note here that we are not still downloading the applications on iOS. So it has to be a Windows 10 and above. And basically this is because the application is heavy, and if you install it on any other that is below Windows 10, it's likely to crash. So the other option is the eTIMS multi-pay point windows. This is majorly suitable or applicable for taxpayers who have multiple cashier points. So a case in point is a taxpayer. Let's say you have a business, but in your business, in that particular branch, you have like 10 tills, you have more than one till. So then you're required to install the eTIMS multi-pay point, and this is for the MySQL. So this is because you are accessing the same stock, but you have different pay points. So ideally, you should be able to install this so that all the pay points can be able to communicate to your stock management module so that they can be able to sell. So it's important to clearly understand the various solutions so that by the time you're requesting or you're applying, you're choosing from a point of knowledge. The third option is for eTIMS PayPoint. This is the Android. This is suitable for taxpayers who sell goods and run it, and it can be installed on a tablet or an Android version 8 and above OS. And it also has the stock management module. So if you have goods and you don't sell lots of invoices, you don't generate lots of invoices in a day, then this can also be applicable for you. The next option, the next slide, sorry. So as we discuss, and you can be able to tell for taxpayers who have not onboarded which option or rather which solution is best applicable for you. So the fourth option there is the eTIMS online portal. This is suitable for taxpayers who only sell services. So you don't need to stock because you cannot stock a service. So an example here would be legal fees if you're charging people, and as long as it is not a good, remember a good has to be tangible. So if you're selling vertible services, then your option would be the eTIMS online portal. So for the eTIMS online portal, you can be able to log in anywhere to generate a tax invoice. So assuming that you come to town and one of your clients, you're a lawyer, one of your clients wants legal services and you need to generate a tax invoice and send to them, you can just ask someone to give you their machine, you'll use your login credentials, and then you generate your tax invoice. Or you can log in onto your phone on your web, then you generate a tax invoice once the application had been approved. So it is that simple for people who are in the service industry. The fifth option is the eTIMS Lite that is suitable for taxpayer in the service sectors and do not sell supplies or goods. It can also run on a smartphone. And remember, this one has to be installed. So for the online portal, there's no installation, but this one installation has to be done. The sixth option there is for the VSCU and OSCU. That is the virtual sales control unit and the online sales control unit. These are options that we are saying currently we are training, or rather we are sourcing for third-party integrators for it, and these will be best applicable for taxpayers who already have their billing systems. So if you have your point of sale and you're not willing to let it go, then you can be able to use, you can be able to wait for the OSCU and VSCU. So what is the onboarding procedure? How taxpayers already know the different solutions, they have identified which one is applicable to them. So the next question is, how would they onboard, or what's the procedure for onboarding? We have tried to make it as simple as possible. It is a 3-step which can be done by taxpayers without coming to our premise. And we insist on this. These are services that you can get without visiting any KRA office as long as you follow the user guides that we have put in public domain. So first, the taxpayer is supposed to ensure that they are VAT registered taxpayer. They first go to our KRA website, just type, if you're here and you're on your laptop, just type etims.kra.go.ke. It will lead you to a sign up page. But before you do the sign up, you're required to make an application for the preferred solution option. So I have talked about the different options, and once a taxpayer knows the options that they should be able to pick, then they are given a form that is called the commitment form, which is also available for the public in our website. So once you fill the commitment form and you sign up, and you attach the IDs of the directors, then approval is needed from our side. So we have officers who do the approval, and this is done at all KRA offices within the country. So you don't have to come to Nairobi for an approval. You can go to any KRA office for an approval, or you can call, but most of the time the approval is done without you even making a call, without you going physically to a KRA office. So on the form, you're supposed to know the nature of your business. As I was guiding, if you're in the service industry, you'll pick the online option. And if depending on the business or goods you supply or the nature of your business, then you will know which option to pick. The frequency of invoicing will also determine which option you will pick. And if the taxpayer has access to computing device, which is the computer, if you have a computer or you have a smartphone or a tablet, whichever computing device you have, that will inform where the solution will be downloaded if it is not online. And also, if the taxpayer has internet access, you cannot choose online if you're in a place where you can never do invoicing because of internet connectivity. The KRA officer who approves will then schedule a time to install and configure and train you on how to use the software. But there's a disclaimer here. This is what we used to do and we are still doing, but it's important to note here that we have published a user guide, and I had also informed us that there will be videos that will also help you, will also guide you on how to go about this. So once that is done, and just the same way you download apps on your phone, you will still be able to do the same. And if you have the user guide, you should be able to be sorted. But that does not mean that you cannot make inquiries at our offices or you cannot visit us. We always train taxpayers and we encourage them that if you have any issues or any concern, our office is located at Kenyatta Avenue. The building is JQuat Towers, 8th floor. So the next slide, you will be able to take our phone numbers where you can always call and make inquiries if you have any. So Brenda, this brings me to the end of my presentation. I know there are lots of questions, but of course you can guide us from here. Back to you, Brenda.
Thank you, thank you, thank you so much, Liz Vera. I want to request us to just give her a round of applause. Let's appreciate her. I know we have the hand clap emoji that is somewhere here. Please let's appreciate Liz Vera for that. Very well done presentation. I know that our listeners are waiting eagerly for us to answer their questions. So we have such an engagement on our chat box, and we are diving right to it. I know there are many questions that have come, and we will take the shortest time possible to respond to as many questions as possible. I will just stop sharing my screen so that I can now switch gears and focus on the questions that are coming up. Thank you so much, those that are helping me. Appreciate our presenter, Liz Vera, for the day. Thank you so much. Now, Liz Vera, I'll be asking you questions very quickly so that you can respond to them. I know, let me just see, I'm seeing where to start from. Liz Vera, let me just start with the ones that I have at hand, and then I will keep asking as we go ahead. There are those who are asking, Simon is asking, can you use both eTIMS and TIMS? And then take another question. Lois Mushiri is asking that, is eTIMS compulsory if you already have TIMS? Is eTIMS compulsory if you already have TIMS? And then let me see a question here by Anne Akatabe. I'll ask the question because it has to do with the invoices generated through eTIMS and filing of the VAT return. But kindly just address this matter of the ones who got the earlier device, the TIMS device and the eTIMS device. So is it compulsory, and can somebody use both?
Thank you, Brenda. So I'll take the first question where taxpayer is asking, can they use both eTIMS and TIMS? And maybe my concern for this taxpayer would be, why would you use the two? if you already onboarded Teams and it is working perfectly for you, you can just proceed and use it. And if you have onboarded eTIMS and you're doing your invoices on eTIMS, then it's correct to say that it's at this point, kindly just choose one. You cannot be invoicing today on eTIMS, tomorrow you are invoicing on Teams. It will even make your accounting difficult from your side. I believe a taxpayer should be able to be decisive enough to know which option they want to use while they are doing the invoicing. So the other question is eTIMS compulsory if you have Teams? At the moment, we are saying that if you have a Teams device and it's working well, there's no need for you to onboard eTIMS unless it's voluntary. So currently, we are encouraging taxpayers, if you already onboarded Teams, kindly continue using the Teams devices unless the management communicates otherwise. Back to you,
All
Brenda.
right, thank you, thank you. Just keep your mic on so that I can ask the questions that are coming here. So there's a question regarding the control unit number, the CU number. I've seen a question here of someone asking, kindly, Christine Mukonyo, she's saying, clarify on the CU number when filing returns. How is it declared when filing the returns? She's asking, do we use it in full? This is Christine. And then there's also a question here, I think it is similar. Lois Mushiri is asking, how do we file the eTIMS invoice since it has a slash? I think perhaps a demonstration is necessary for them regarding the CU invoice number. Liz Vera?
Sorry for that, I was muted. Thank you, Brenda. So I'll go to the first question where the taxpayer is asking on the correct invoice number to use while filing the VAT returns on a monthly basis. So first, it is important to note, and we have constantly insisted that when you're filing your VAT returns, the correct invoice number is the control unit invoice number that has been generated through the system. So the invoice for Teams allows you to have both on the tax invoice where you have the control unit invoice number generated through the Teams device and the trader's taxpayer's invoice number that you should be using for your record keeping purposes or any other purpose. But for the purpose of filing your VAT returns on a monthly basis, you should be able to use the control unit invoice number generated through the system. So for Teams, the invoice number is a 19-digit number. So you should be able to input all the numbers. I know we have had concerns from taxpayers saying the numbers are too much or they are too many, but here is the clarification. So all those numbers have a meaning to you and to us. So kindly do not omit any number because they identify that particular invoice. So for Teams, kindly remember that you should be able to input all the 19 digits for the invoice number. So for eTIMS, the taxpayer had inquired if they should use the invoice number as is because it has a slash. Yes, you should input the invoice number with the slash because that is a unique identifier for that particular invoice. So do not omit anything or do not add anything. Kindly just use the system generated invoice number that appears on your tax invoice.
Thank you.
So,
Okay.
yes, back to you, Brenda.
All right. I think that matter of invoice number, don't even mute yourself. Let's just continue. Lemuel here. Before I invite one Mr. John Nyachani to actually unmute himself and ask the question. John, I'll be giving you an opportunity just now. So I have given you the right to unmute yourself, but kindly hold your question. Just let me take this question from Lemuel. Again, on the invoice number, he's saying, which invoice number should you use? Let me just scroll down through his question. Give me a moment. Yes, quite a lengthy question. I think let's give John an opportunity to ask the question. Yes, which invoice number should you use for VAT return? The teams or the suppliers? Does that question make sense to you, Liz Vera? The teams
Okay.
or suppliers?
So when you're filing your VAT returns, you cannot. You have to use when you're putting your input. You will use your invoice numbers that you have generated in the system. When you're claiming input tax from the other person or whoever you have bought from, then that is when you put their invoice numbers. And on your tax invoice that they have given you, there's always a control unit invoice number. So the question was not asked well, but I've tried to rephrase it. And if it is not clear, then the taxpayer can still unmute. Then we have a one-on-one discussion, or I can still provide my number after this discussion so that we can talk more.
Right. Let me give now, John. Thank you. Thank you. Please don't mute yourself. Let's continue. John is here. John, I know you can hear us. Can you say something on your microphone so that we can hear you? Your hand is up. John, your hand is up. We can hear you clearly. Please go ahead and speak. All right. Maybe as we're giving him an opportunity to handle his audio device, remember, if you have a question, this is your opportunity now to ask the question. We have several questions, Liz Vera, here to answer. Somebody is asking, if I have been doing nil VAT returns, do I still need to register for invoice? Do I still need to register for eTIMS, the nil filers?
So for the nil filers, there are two ways to look at it. Why are you a nil filer? Number one, probably because you don't have business, or still you are anticipating business in the future. At the moment, we are saying that you are a VAT registered taxpayer. So by law, the law mandates that all VAT registered taxpayers must be eTIMS or TIMS compliant. So as you wait for business, you must be compliant as you wait for business. You don't wait to get business and become compliant. So the other precedes. So you have to be compliant first as you wait for business, which we are hoping that in this case, our taxpayer is just a nil filer because they have not gotten any business that warrants them to generate an invoice. So first, they should become compliant even as they wait for business prospects.
Very well answered. Let's continue. If a taxpayer has 3 companies, will they be required to purchase 3 mobile phones or laptops for the different companies?
That's a very important question. It's one of our frequently asked questions that I wanted to address at the end of it, but I'm glad that the audience has brought it to our attention. So if you have, let's say, we've encountered some taxpayers who have even 10 companies. So if you're selling services in those 10 companies, we have we if you're selling services, I've already trained that you can be able to log in anywhere so that you can be able to generate invoices for the services. However, if you're selling goods and you have downloaded the app on an invoice on a machine or any computing device, then you cannot be able to do invoicing for 2 different companies on one computing device. So if the companies sell goods and goods, then only one company you'll have to install it on one computing device, be it a laptop or a phone. But if you're selling services, then you can be able to generate invoices on that particular machine for several companies. Brenda?
All right, let's continue. How long does it take for eTIMS to be approved? I've seen several questions of such nature. Maybe you can comment on that.
Okay, so for the approval, I will admit here that for this week, we have been a little bit slow because part of our staff were engaged in another official assignment, but ideally it should be we should be able to fast track, or we should ensure that the approvals are made. So for the approvals for this week, I have to admit that we are a little bit slow because 80% of our staff are out on an official assignment, but that is not an excuse from our side, but we are making sure and we are doing everything possible within our capability to ensure that all approvals are done. So from this forum, Brenda, maybe you can allow our taxpayers, if you have any pending approvals and you're in this forum, you can just drop your PIN and I will be able to facilitate the approvals once we are done with this training.
Thank you. Let's proceed with the questions. There's another question coming in right here. How are we going to handle fuel receipts, which the petrol stations are issuing without VAT pins? Some never have the machines. maybe address that question.
So if I heard you correctly, they're saying some of those petrol stations do not give them the tax invoices. So again, we'll take it back to you. Yes, at KRA, we are ensuring, or rather we ensure that we enforce compliance, but at some point, we also have to admit that some taxpayers, no matter what you do, they will always issue tax invoices that are not compliant. So now the responsibility is shifted to you, who is given a tax invoice that is not compliant, and you allow that to happen. So we are really encouraging that if you go to a business entity that you patronize and you issued with a tax invoice that is not valid, then call out on those taxpayers. And if you're not able to, Brenda, you can always share with them the complaints email where they can register their complaints for taxpayers who are not giving them tax invoices that are compliant.
Let's proceed with more questions. I see Eric Wasam has lifted his hands together with Baya. I'll be getting to you shortly. Eric, prepare yourself to ask the questions. I have two questions to you, Vera, before we go to Eric. The first question is on Mac computer users and iPhone users. Are they compatible? Is eTIMS compatible with Mac computers and iPhones? Question.
Yeah, that's a good question that I had addressed, but it's important to say that at the moment, no, but it's work in progress. We are working on it, but at the moment, it's not compatible. Brenda?
Right, and then this question is, yes, let me read it out. Somebody is asking, how do I access the eTIMS online portal? That is one. And then I think you had addressed this, but the question is asking, I'm kindly requesting to know if eTIMS gives opportunities to other service providing companies to offer integration options for companies with ERP systems. I think you had answered that, Desvera, but maybe you can comment quickly together with the, is this Freemark agencies asking how to access eTIMS online portal?
Okay, so how to access the eTIMS online portal? Just go to your web browser and type etims.kra.go.ke. You'll be able to see how to sign up, and you'll be able to see a guide that will take you through. Then on the second part, where the taxpayer is asking how they can become one of the service providers or third-party integrators, yes, we are in the process of onboarding third-party integrators for such entities, and the user manual and the guide is also on KRA website, where they can be able to see the qualifications, pre-qualifications, so that they can be able to join in the taxpayers who are actually currently testing on the sandbox, so that they can be part of the third-party integrators that we are hoping to onboard. Brenda?
Now, yes, thank you so much. Eric is here. Eric, I hope you're able to speak. Can you greet us?
Okay, thanks. Good morning, Tim.
Good morning. Introduce yourself. Where are you located in Nairobi, or which part of the country? And please ask your question.
Okay, thank you. My name is Eric Amolo, a representative from Gravity Solutions.
Yes.
We are located in Nairobi, Upper Hill.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. And thanks for the great education that we have been given today. Now, I have two questions, because there were three, but the third question has already been responded to.
Yes, proceed.
Yeah, I'm getting you. I got Liz saying that eTIMS is absolutely free. I wanted her to actually clarify, because I have a client who is having some retail hardware. So when the client went to KRA, she was told to either purchase a laptop and get the services installed into the laptop, or buy another device. Because I believe that the reason we are having eTIMS is to basically do away with the devices that keep on hanging, they keep on having their own troubled issues. So when she was told or advised to buy a device, how then do we say that this is basically free? The second question, we have various...
Yes, please make it short, Eric.
Yeah, I'm on the last question. No, we have the third-party integrators. The list is yet to be actually published. how soon can this happen? Because most of the clients are actually claiming that the services that they are currently getting from the devices are not sufficient. Hence, they would also wish to move out of the Teams thing.
Thank you. Thank you for your question, Eric. Liz Vera, please quickly respond to that, and then we go to Baya with his next question.
Okay, so Eric, I heard you and you're asking me why I said it was free, yet you have to buy your laptops or your phones, which you have to use them on to do the invoicing. So as much as we are saying the software is free, we are not charging you for any kind of installation, but you must admit even from your end that for you to do an invoicing, there has to be something, or there has to be any device that you're going to use. So the free part comes from the fact that we are not charging you anything to do the installation, unlike the ETR devices where you had to pay. So for you taxpayer,
not really, not Vera, not buying a laptop. Buying a laptop is for my own convenience. I'm talking of a new device that is on market that clients are advised to purchase.
Which device are we talking about, Eric?
And actually, they got even images of the devices from KRA.
Kindly tell me the device, because for me, I know that for the software to be installed, it has to be installed either on your phone or your tablet or on your laptop. So which device are you referring to?
Okay, I'll share the pictures with you through your WhatsApp, because I have your number, so that you get to confirm, because I was also told of the same yesterday by one of you from KRA.
Yeah, so do you know the name of the device?
One is called the Sexo. The other one I can't recall of the name well, but the person told me that.
What is this device doing?
It is being integrated with eTIMS, so that if a customer doesn't have maybe the laptops or POS, the device would be used instead of such.
Okay, maybe we pick that out of this discussion, Brenda.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Also wanted to guide it that it's a very specific case, Eric. I think we can take this up with Liz Vera and the team afterwards. I think, was there any other feedback remaining? I think,
yes. Sorry, Brenda. The other question from Eric was that how soon are the third-party integrators going to be published? So currently the third-party integrators are testing in our sandbox, and it is a process. So far we've had quite a number who have passed the testing. And sorry for that distraction. So we've had quite a number who are testing and are going to be approved. So I would not be specific in this particular meeting to say that the list will be published on this and this date, but from our side, we are doing everything possible to hasten the process and to make sure that it is done as soon as possible. So it is work in progress, except for the dates which I cannot be able to confirm. Brenda?
That is very clear. Thank you, Liz Vera. I want us to take a few other questions before I give an opportunity for Baya to ask his questions. I know time is really going fast, but we'll try to address as many as we can. The question is this: how do we? No, that's different. I think somebody is asking about their VAT obligation. That is different from eTIMS. Let me just get yes. Jen Wairua is asking, the eTIMS sign-up form is not available. It is showing error 404. Maybe you can address that and then also take this question. Ali is asking us to address matters to do with the Finance Act. Ali, I can tell you that we cannot discuss the Finance Act up until we get feedback from the courts. So we will not address any matter to do with the Finance Act in this forum, but once we get, if we get a go ahead from the courts, then indeed we shall be doing sensitizations on it. So allow us not to talk about it today. We have a question here also by Millicent Mwangi. Millicent Mwangi and Juan Linko. How do we go about DA1 in a case where we have supplied an NGO who are exempted from VAT? How do we get a refund on VAT amount using the DA1 form on Teams? Maybe just take those two questions and then we get back to audio asking bye-bye and the likes?
So Brenda, I'll begin with the first question where taxpayer was asking that the commitment form is currently giving an error in the website, and I can confirm that it is not. I have just downloaded it here, and I have shared the link in the chat where they can equally get the form to everyone. You can reshare, Brenda. I have shared. The link is actually on KRA website. When you go to KRA website, you'll be able to get it, and I've shared a link for ease of getting it for this meeting. All right, then I'll go to the next question where the taxpayer is asking how they will be able to claim for the D1, especially for taxpayers who are exempt. So on our website, again, I'm going to share the unique item code that will be used. And as Brenda reads out the next question, I will be able to share on how you will be able to generate those tax invoices. And you will continue filing your returns the way you have been doing, because part of it is that if you had generated an invoice that had VAT, for such a type of a taxpayer, and then you get a refund, then you need to amend the return. So I will share again the item code so that that particular taxpayer can be assisted. And if that will not be helpful, they can still reach out to us through the numbers that we had shared. Brenda?
Oh, yes, thank you so much, Liz Vera. Joseph is asking, I noted that for eTIMS software, the serial number for the computer you're using is recorded. What happens when you change the computer?
So again, on the commitment form that you are signing, where you put the device serial number, we make sure that we've had a lot of issues where taxpayers come and say that you installed the app on this machine, I formatted it, or it reset, or I deleted the app. So there are clear instructions on the commitment form on part 5. So it clearly says that you should not proceed to format or reset the device on which the app had been installed until you get an authorization from our end. So that is what we encourage taxpayers to do so that they avoid getting into issues with KRA. So before you format your machine, because the device serial number that is in the system should be the same and should be constant even for audit purposes. So make sure that before you do anything, you request for authorization from our end. Brenda?
Thank you, Liz Vera. I think there's a question here that's a concern to a number of people. And one, Dennis Bet has asked, how will we move forward with inconsistencies generated from previous filings with supplier invoices as opposed to the CU numbers? I think quite a number of taxpayers use the supplier invoices as opposed to using the CU numbers while filing their VAT return. How is that handled?
So again, we have given this guidance constantly, but we acknowledge that some taxpayers did not get it on time. But if you had used there are inconsistencies that are rising because you had used the trader's invoice number, then you should be able to reach out to the person you sold to use the same invoice number. So just to take us a little bit back, what brings the inconsistency? So if Brenda sold to Liz and Brenda has used invoice number 1 and Liz has used invoice number 1.0, so that is where inconsistency starts. So when you're selling to someone, it is okay or it is proper for you to agree that initially they were using the trader invoice number, they had to use the same invoice number. So it is upon you to call out the person who you issued out the invoice number to use the same invoice number. That's why we are encouraging that if all taxpayers use the system generated invoice number, then inconsistency is a thing of the past. So at the moment, you both have to use the same invoice number to avoid inconsistencies.
Thank you very much. I think please continue on the same, because Miriam is also asking, how about the invoice date? And then we go to Florence to ask her question very quickly.
Okay, thank you.
Introduce yourself and where are you from?
My check.
You're good.
Okay, my name is Philip Baer. I'm from Mombasa. And I have 3 quick questions. I'm using an e-signer to print the ETR invoice. So the other day I got an error. It read totalizers overflow. So what could that mean? That's the first question. Second question is there a limit to the amount of transactions that you can do in a particular day? And the third question is, what happens if you are not able to print the ETR in the same day you raise the invoice, like you are crossing over into the following period, let's say in July, and you're not able to print the ETR in July? Is it allowed to print it in August? So those are the three questions.
Thank you for making them brief. Liz Vera, you can address them.
Yeah, so I believe that this taxpayer, maybe you can just unmute them one more time. We are talking about TIMS or eTIMS for these questions. Kindly.
TIMS.
All right, that's well guided. So for the error you're receiving, that is not a TIMS error or a KRA error. So I'd encourage you to talk to the supplier of your device so that you can be able to troubleshoot as a team so that it can be resolved. On the second part, on the limit of transactions in a day, we don't have a limit of transactions put from the KRA side. However, you should be able to be supported by your supplier so that they can be able to identify if the device was capped at a certain number. So from our side, we don't have a limit or the number of invoices we expect from your side. The third question was that you, in a scenario where you're not able to generate an invoice today, are you able to generate it the next day and maybe backdate it to the date that you are supposed to generate it? So I will give this response in two phases. So the first part is that with the TIMS or eTIMS, you are not able to backdate an invoice. And the second part of it is the reason why you're not able to do that. So we have the tax point stipulated in the VAT Act, and the tax point simply states on when a tax invoice should be generated. So it is your responsibility or your role to make sure that you generate the invoice at the point the tax is considered due. So there's no option where you can say that you were supposed to generate a tax invoice in December, but you realize that you realize the same in February, so you want to backdate. So that provision is currently not available. Brenda?
Thank you for that, Maya. I think your questions have been responded to. I wish to move on to the next slide. All right, now let's move on to, I think Florence has Florence Johnson. She was among the first people to raise their hand. So let me give her an opportunity to ask the question. Florence, you can hear us. Please ask your question quickly. Introduce yourself and tell us where you're from.
My name is Florence Johnson.
Yes, Florence.
EKV and Associates.
Yes, please ask your question and kindly just move closer to your microphone. Your sound is a bit faint.
You can't hear me?
Now I can hear you.
All right, so just a quick one. On the special table, how is it going to be handled when they board on eTIMS? Are they going to be surcharged or non-filing?
Florence, your audio is not clear. Yes, please ask your question again.
What is going to happen for clients who are already, or taxpayers who are already on special table when they board on eTIMS?
Thank you for your question.
Put on special table a long time ago, and maybe you took like 6 months to board. What's going to happen on the penalties?
I don't know whether, Liz Vera, you are able to comment on matters special table at this point.
Yes, okay. Brenda, yes.
Go ahead.
So for the special table, I know there are two types of two seasons where taxpayers were put on special table. So the first time taxpayers were put on special table were because of other compliance checks. So as like the taxpayer has alluded, they were put on special table 6 months ago or some duration ago. So the requirement was that you should have reached out and complied so that you're removed on special table so that you can be able to file your returns. There's a second category of taxpayers that we put in special tables specifically to onboard eTIMS. These are taxpayers who had not onboarded TIMS We called them, we wrote emails to them, but they did not respond. So we put them on special tables so that we could get their attention. So most of these taxpayers realized immediately that they were on special tables. So they came and onboarded and were removed from special tables so that no penalties would be accrued on their ledger. So taxpayers were encouraged to come because you had to, if you are a taxpayer who files their returns at the end of every month and you go to file and you realize you're not able to file, there was a pop-up notifying you that your VAT obligation is under review. So you ought to have reached out to your tax service office for you to be assisted. So for taxpayers who onboarded under this sector, they onboarded eTIMS, they were automatically removed from special table and they did not accrue penalties. At the moment, we still have taxpayers who are still on special table. They were put because they had not onboarded TIMS or eTIMS. They have not reached out to us. So they are accruing those penalties, and the penalties will have to be borne by the taxpayers, but they can still come into a negotiation with the account managers at the tax offices. Brenda?
Thank you very much. I think, Florence, you have received your response to your question. I wish to move on to a question by Lena. I have seen you. I've seen your question on the chat box, and I've seen you raising your hands because you want to give clarity to the question that you are asking. I will give you an opportunity just now, but there's a consistent question that I have seen, Liz, on the chat box regarding validation of an invoice that has been generated through eTIMS. Quite a number of people are asking how they are able to authenticate that this invoice has surely been, just to avoid the matters of inconsistencies. So do taxpayers have provisions, a place where they can actually confirm that this invoice has genuinely been generated through eTIMS?
Absolutely, Brenda. So one of the additional features that is both on TIMS and eTIMS is the QR code. So if you scan the QR code and it gives you an output of what you expected, which is on your tax invoice, then that is a sure way of confirming or verifying the validity of a tax invoice. So with time, we are making enhancements to ensure that the eTIMS invoices also can be verified on the iTax invoice checker. But at the moment, the QR code is one of the ways that the taxpayers, be it you or I or the business people, can be able to verify the authenticity of a tax invoice. Brenda?
Allow me to play the devil's advocate. So assuming I scan the QR code, what should I expect to see? If it is valid, it looks like this. If not, this is how it looks like. Just give that clarity very quickly, Liz.
Nice, Brenda. So the point is, when you scan a QR code from a valid tax invoice, then it should give you summarized details of what is contained on that tax invoice. So if you go to, let's say, Naivas supermarket and you buy a loaf of bread and a packet of milk and you scan the invoice, you scan the QR code, then that is the same output you should be able to see with the tax amount and the taxable amount. So you should be able to see an output of what is contained on the tax invoice, just verifying that the QR code is valid and the invoice has been transmitted to KRA.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Let me give Lena now an opportunity to ask and give clarity to her question. Lena, you can hear us? Just confirm with
I can hear you.
Fantastic. Please introduce yourself. Tell us where you're from and ask your question.
So my name is Lena. I am the financial manager for FBW Kenya Limited. We're architects. We run architects company.
Okay.
Yeah. I think I put my question to you about the way audit has been done. And it's quite relevant because of what Vera put in a presentation, how all the checking by KRA will be simple, no problem. I mean, what I don't understand is at the moment we are using Teams. Everything we issue, all our invoices to clients are properly issued. All our expenditure, we always demand proper receipts on which we can claim VAT back. We've had recent audit, and for some reason, backwards and forwards, KRA have come up with the reason why they are giving us not only penalties, but extra tax for the financial year and for VAT to be paid. And the reason is they're not using the data we have provided them and which is on their servers, but they're using our bank statements to say, no, these are your receipts or this is your VAT. I mean, how can that be? I don't believe that everything will be hunky-dory. That's my issue.
Thank you very much, Lina, for your question. Now, Liz Vera sounds more of a compliance question, but do you think you can weigh in on this question? Because if it's a compliance matter, yes, you want to say something?
Yeah, I'll just say something, and maybe because the taxpayer is saying that we said that there will be minimal or non-intrusive verification of documents, and they feel aggrieved with the way the audit or the compliance check has been done.
No.
I believe that.
No, that's not true. We have provided all our general ledgers, all our invoices, everything. We have provided your KRA with everything for 2 financial years they asked.
Okay, all right.
So they cross-checked the invoices. Now they're saying, well, it's not correct what you've submitted because receipts on your bank statement shows this. Of course, in the bank statement, you receive refunds. You receive transfer monies from one account to the other.
All right, Lina, I think, Liz Vera, let me take this one so that because this is more of a compliance matter more than it is a TIMS or an eTIMS matter. Lina, for that, we might not be able to answer that question on this platform as it might not be the most appropriate to answer the question. However, what we can do is kindly send me a direct message just on the chat box with your email address and your telephone number, and we can pick up this matter out of the session. Is that fair enough?
It's fair, but I think in the long run, everything is not going to be hunky-dory because
we have given you everything. That's okay. That's fine, Lina. Let's not take it further than we already have.
Sure.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
All right.
Okay.
Then let me give an opportunity to Helen also to ask her question because she's also raised her hand for quite some time. Helen, you have an opportunity to have your question. And I want to ask you kindly, if you can, please, let's keep it relevant to the eTIMS and TIMS question. I think even as Helen is preparing to speak, I have a question here that we can answer from Raju. But I think it was answered because he was asking, how can we know that our supplier is using the control unit invoice number or system generated invoice? I think you had responded to that. Let me get Helen to ask her question as well.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Helen Muli. I'm based in Nairobi. Thank you so much.
Yes, Helen, please make your question brief.
My question is just on whether a clarification on whether eTIMS will be applicable to an NGO who only specifically withholds only the 2% withholding VAT.
Thank you for your question, Liz Vera.
Thanks, Helen. So for eTIMS and TIMS, again, we'll go back to the basics where we said, as long as you're a VAT registered taxpayer and you have vatable goods or services, then you should be able to have either TIMS devices or eTIMS, which at the moment we are advocating for eTIMS. So the point is, as long as you have vatable services or vatable goods, then you are supposed to have either of them to ensure that you're compliant. Brenda?
Thank you very much, Helen. I think you've gotten the feedback to your question. I now want to give Rose Gishohi, who is here, an opportunity to ask her question. Rose? Rose, go ahead. I think we are not able to hear you. Something not right with the audio device.
Good afternoon, and thank you very much for this.
Yes, we can hear you now very clearly. Please introduce yourself, where you're from, and your question.
Thank you. My name is Rose from Dawa Limited here in Nairobi. And my concerns are two. One is on the QR codes. So we deal with a lot of invoices from suppliers as well as we do a lot of invoicing, but we are currently on TIMS. We are compliant on TIMS. Now, what I want to ask is, we have noted that sometimes we do get invoices, and especially even where we buy things on petty cash, but when you come to validate the data on the QR code, we are not able to validate. That means either it has not transmitted to KRA or something. So my question is, what is KRA doing to ensure that the taxpayers at the end of the day are not penalized and the burden is not left on the taxpayer to follow up on the other party to comply? My second question is on the exemption list. So currently we have noted that it has been updated, but the question is, why is this information not usually communicated like to taxpayers directly? Is there a way that we can have the information come to the taxpayers as opposed to waking up one day and you find all your invoices are not transmitting because apparently there is a change on the Teams codes. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Liz Vera, I welcome you to address those two questions from Rose.
Thank you, Brenda. I was just finishing up on writing on the question. Done. So what the taxpayer asked is very valid, and the taxpayer is asking that sometimes you go and purchase from an individual or a business entity, and you find that while trying to verify the QR code, then you are not able to do so because either the invoice was not transmitted or because of one reason or the other. So then the question would be, that if you realize that the invoice was not transmitted, why don't you contact the person who you bought from? Because I'm being realistic here that it will be difficult for us to know whose invoice was not transmitted. But maybe I will highlight two things that we are doing from our end. So from our end as KRA, we have enforcement team on the ground that are constantly checking on VAT registered taxpayers to ensure that they generate valid invoices. So we are also trying to shift that blame from you so that you're not the one to ensure that the invoices are transmitted. So there's a part we are playing, and we know that this is a part that we can do much in it, but currently we are ensuring that all the VAT registered taxpayers transmit valid invoices. So we might not have the capacity to do that all the time, but for sure we are doing something from our end. Then the other concern, which is also valid, you said that you walk up to different item codes of the items or rather goods and services in the first and second schedule. So maybe we'll go back and ask our questions. What informs the difference, or what informs the change in the item codes? So we know that once the finance bill is passed, then some of the goods move from 0 rated to exempt, some go from 16% to 0 rated. So that is what informs the change in the item code. So maybe it's important to note where the change comes from, but I agree from our end that you requested that we should do a more targeted communication to the VAT taxpayers who are affected. So it's a take home for us that we will do more targeted communication, but you also have to understand that this process is also informed by other processes. So from our side, we always try to put these in public domain on KRA website. So that is where all the VAT taxpayers get the information, but it's a take home for us where we are saying that we will do better targeted communication to the relevant parties. Brenda?
Thank you. Thank you so much. Let me also add in on that, Liz, to Rose, because the question she raised is a matter to do with tax education to the relevant taxpayers. Indeed, that falls squarely under our docket. I can assure you, Rose, that this financial year we have plans to do very targeted sensitization in terms of passing information. So what I can ask you is that you look out on the platforms that we have. We will use your emails as we did while sending out invitations to have you join this sensitization. But also we have very many other platforms, including KRA TV. We also have our KRA website. We have our social media pages, including a very active Twitter space handle that is at KRA Care. We also have KRA TV on Facebook together with Kenya Revenue Authority. I'll ask you to just look out on our social media handles, especially because we will be doing our best to channel this information as much as possible. And remember, we also have a very active presence in terms of media. We put out public notices all the time, but those who are not able to access our public notices, say on the Kenyan Gazette newspapers, you can also access through when we do sensitizations on radio and on TV. So Rose, thank you for that. I wish to, wow, our time is really fast spent. Thank you, Rose. I think that should be it for your question. I see we have quite a number of people with questions. However, I want to give the 3 hands that are raised. These are the last questions that we will take of raised hands. Liz Vera, I know we have stretched you more than needed. I'm looking at the time, and thank you so much for staying on with us until now. I want to give an opportunity, with your indulgence, of course, just to ask this question, to give an opportunity to, I'm sorry, I may not be able to take any more questions apart from Mrs. Miriam George. And Miriam and George. I think Emmanuel has joined us later. So let me give Miriam an opportunity to ask her question. Introduce yourself quickly, tell us where you're from and your question, and then George will do the same.
You can hear me?
Very clearly. Karibu.
Great. My name is Miriam. I just need a clarification. I think I got lost on regarding the dates that we are going to use, because in some cases you're finding, okay, for example, I have an invoice where the system invoice generated date is reading maybe 30th of June, while the CUIN number is reading on maybe a date in July. That is maybe from a supplier. Again,
Okay.
maybe from my end, I've generated an invoice and I'm not able to pass it through the team's device on that particular month. So how do I go about accounting for that in respect to the dates? Because it might be conflicting where maybe I give an invoice or a person is using the system generated, I'm using the CUIN. How do you go about that?
Thank you very much. I think Liz, you can handle that.
Yeah, so Brenda, I'll start with the first concern for Miriam, and you may just want to unmute her because I need to clarify on something. So this is the scenario. Sorry, I want to give Brenda. So Brenda, sorry, Miriam. So Miriam, if you're using Teams, I believe we are talking on Teams. So if
Yes.
you're using, if you generate an invoice today and your device is not connected to the internet, yes, you will be able to generate the invoice. But the day you connect to internet and the invoice is transmitted to KRA, those are two different dates. All right, Miriam?
Sure.
So the first date, so I'll give an example of today. Today is 13th of July. So you generate an invoice and give that invoice to the taxpayer today. Then you connect to internet tomorrow, 14th of July, and the invoice is transmitted to KRA, right? So which of the dates will you use while filing your VAT returns? So that's the area of concern. Miriam?
Sure. Yeah, that's the area of concern. So specifically, the issue is when it's spilling over to the next month, for example. In my case, I have an invoice whereby the system generated invoice date, for example, is on 30th June. Then the CUIN, where there's even the QR code, and even if I scan the QR code and verify, it's reading a different date.
And I have explained why to read different dates.
Yes, so in that particular case, while I'm filing my VAT return, which date should I use?
The date that you generated that invoice. So that is the tax point, and that is when the tax was due. So if you generated that invoice on, let's say, 20th of June, and the invoice was transmitted to KRA on 30th of June as your case, then the date that you're supposed to account for the taxes is on 20th of June.
Okay.
Miriam?
Got it.
All right.
Thank
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. There's a last question now from George. I think even as we are beginning to wind up our session, George, I have given you an opportunity to unmute yourself and ask your question. George?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you too. Please introduce yourself. Tell us where you're from.
Okay, this is George from Kakamega County from a tax consultants.
From Kakamega, all right. Go ahead with your question.
I'd like to understand this issue of 2%. How is it going to be captured on the teams? Because we realize that we have hotels which are charging 16% VAT and 2% tourism fund. How is it being captured on the teams? Because we realize that only teams takes care of 16%, and when you are issuing the receipts or issuing the invoice, you realize that there is 2%, which is if you capture on the ETR machine, it will amount to double taxation. And then the other thing, I also want to understand how Teams is going to deal with the exempt. You realize we have some clients like these UN nations which are VAT exempt. You realize you have a client who wants a VAT, he wants you to issue an ETR, but in the real sense is going to give you a VAT exempt. How is KRA handling that? Because you realize that they are taking so long, a very long time to generate those tax exempt certificates. Can you be able to put it on iTax so that it is something constant, the way we get withholding certificates immediately?
Thank you, George, for your question. I want to hand over to Liz Vera to address those two questions.
Yes, Brenda. So the first part of his question was about the 2% that is not considered in the 16%. Just let him remain unmuted so we can have a discussion. So the first part, he said that there's the 2%, which we all know that is not part of the 16%. So that is what is called non-fiscal data. That is data that is not required for tax purposes. However, it is on a tax invoice. So with the eTIMS devices, you are able to generate an invoice that will cover for the 16% and the 2%. That is considered part of non-fiscal data. So for eTIMS, there's a provision to include non-fiscal data because sometimes a taxpayer or rather a customer might insist, you charge me 2% and it has to be on my tax invoice. Whereas KRA, we are not mandated to collect that amount of the 2%. That is collected by, I don't know which body collects the tourism levy. I'm confusing the correct, absolutely. So for us, we are only concerned with the fiscal data that is used for tax purposes. So that is part of non-fiscal data that must appear on the tax invoice, but will not be transmitted to KRA. So your supplier of the device should be able to show you how to do that and generate a tax invoice that incorporates it. For the eTIMS taxpayers, we have done, or rather we have input the provision to capture non-fiscal data that will be generated on the tax invoice, but will not be transmitted to KRA. So on the, George?
Yes.
Was that helpful?
Yeah, that is helpful.
All right, so I'll go to the second part of your question about the exempt. So you are asking how you will be able to generate, or rather to give invoices for taxpayers who you're selling to, and maybe they are exempt. So for TIMS, we have items.
Just a clarification.
Just a clarification.
Yes, George, please make it quick.
We have clients who are not supposed to pay VAT, but they insist for you to be given an exempt certificate. You should issue them with an invoice, an ETR.
All right, so we have a category of taxpayers, as you have said correctly, who should not be charged the VAT, but yes, they are consuming vatable services or goods.
Yes,
so
correct.
We have item codes, or rather we have a list of item codes that contains goods and services and specific bodies or people who work for specific bodies who are exempt, which is contained in the first and second schedule of the VAT Act. The list to the item codes, I will share the link in our chat box so that you can refer to it. So when you're generating an invoice for that particular entity or people, then you are required to use the specific item code when generating that invoice. George?
Okay.
Brenda?
Wow, thank you. Thank you so much, George. I think we have given an opportunity today to everyone who had raised their hands to ask their question. I don't think there's anybody who has been left out. Thank you for the questions that you have asked. Liz Vera, thank you so much for your input from when we started the sensitization to now. Just before we release you, we just have a few more questions. I've seen this question repeated many times with many of our taxpayers asking about which invoice numbers to capture under the sales and which ones to capture under the purchase, especially the purchase section when claiming input VAT. Maybe you can address that as well, even as you talk about, is it Shirangi or Shivangi asking, after e-invoice generation, can I delete, modify, or cancel it? Liz Vera, even as you get ready to now make your closing remarks.
Just a moment, can you delete invoices on eTIMS? Thank you. Sorry for taking some time. So the first question was on the invoice numbers to use, and we have said in this meeting, we have agreed that moving forward, we will be using the control unit invoice numbers generated through the system. If you're using the TIMS device, the invoice number is the 19-digit number. If you're using the eTIMS softwares, then the invoice number is clearly stated below in your tax invoice, and it has a slash towards the end of that invoice number. It is 15 character. So then the other question is on eTIMS. Can you delete invoices on eTIMS? So I believe this taxpayer is asking if they can be able to generate credit notes through eTIMS. And yes, you can be able to generate credit notes. And about deleting an invoice, once the invoice has been transmitted, the only option you have is to generate a partial credit note or a full credit note. So I don't know if they used a wrong term, but deleting an invoice is not possible once it is sent to KRA. So if you had made a mistake, and yes, there's a provision to make corrections, you can be able to correct it through a credit note, which we have provision for. Brenda?
Thank you. I think you've also answered the question of a person who was asking about the credit notes. You preempted and answered it. There is Tom here together with other taxpayers who have just onboarded. Yeah. And Tom is saying that I have just started capturing my sales this month on eTIMS platform. Now, in terms of filing the returns, because we know that the due date is on the 20th of this month, he's asking, can I file my returns using quote unquote the old method? Maybe you can address the first time on borders of eTIMS. How do they file?
All right. That's a good question. So it's important here to make it very clear that eTIMS and TIMS, those are invoicing platforms. Filing of your returns, you do it on iTax and it has not changed. Nothing has changed. We are only saying that we are going to make the experience better with auto-population of your VAT returns, which is a work in progress. So it's clear that taxpayers should note that eTIMS and TIMS, these are just invoicing platforms, not filing platforms. So your filing continues on a monthly basis as you have always been doing. Brenda?
Thank you. I think we've had an overwhelming amount of questions. We've tried to take as much time as possible to answer the question, but maybe so that I don't leave this, those people that are very persistent in terms of getting their answers. This one person, I've seen the question severally. It would not be fair for us to close the session without answering. You can do an overview for us, Liz Vera, in terms of identifiers to confirm that an invoice has been generated through eTIMS. I wish it was even possible to project, but they're just asking, how does an invoice that has been generated through eTIMS look like?
Yeah, so a sample of an invoice that has been generated through, this was specific on eTIMS, but I'll begin on TIMS so that we cover majority of the taxpayers. Some are on TIMS or eTIMS. So for TIMS, first it must have, in fact, let me just share with you, Brenda, one moment. Just give me one moment. I want to share with them something. So taxpayers should be well guided from our ETI regulation that was published in 2020 on what must be on a tax invoice. So under section 9, we have a list of what must be contained on a tax invoice, and I will just brush through. First is the PIN of a registered user of the register, the name and date of issuance, serial number. So for all our taxpayers, I have shared the link to what I am currently reading on the chat box so that you can use it even after this meeting. So these are the details that must appear on a tax invoice. So as much as I'm reading the details, I will add also the features that you can be able to identify quickly. The buyer's PIN, where necessary, the total gross amount, the total tax amount, the item code, a brief description of the good or service, the quantity of supply, the unit of measure, the tax rate charged, the unique register identifier, that's a serial number, the unique invoice identifier, the QR code, and any other requirement as may be specified by the commissioner. So that is under section 9. So in addition to this, we are saying that a valid tax invoice must also have It has also been highlighted there, the QR code. So for eTIMS, the only thing that you're not able to see or verify is the invoice number on the invoice checker, which is also a work in progress. But the ETI regulation 2020 provides a clear guideline on what must be on a tax invoice. And this is both for eTIMS and TIMS. The only difference, we are saying that eTIMS, you cannot be able to validate the invoice number on our invoice checker, which is a work in progress. Brenda?
Right, I think, ladies and gentlemen, wherever you are, we can be able to appreciate our panelist, our presenter for the day. Let's have the hand clap for Liz Vera and the appreciations and the messages. I think she has done a tremendous job addressing our questions, even taking the live questions. Let's appreciate her. Wherever you are, let's show our appreciation. Thank you for the hand clap. Thank you for the love. Thank you for the messages as well. Thank you very much, Liz Vera. This thumbs up are yours together with the hand clap. Please receive them and also take them on behalf of the eTIMS department. We are very grateful for the support that you have given us. And I think what has really stood out, especially for me in this particular training, is that you've been able to take questions right from the taxpayers themselves, the users of the TIMS and the eTIMS device themselves. So thank you so much. Thank you so much. Even as you continue to appreciate Liz Vera, I think
Brenda,
I would give you
the last one.
Yes, I'm giving you an opportunity to now just make your closing remarks before we close the session.
All right, thank you for the thumbs up. Thank you for the encouragement. But I requested earlier because a taxpayer had complained that their approvals were pending. So I'm not sure if they shared the pins so that we can be able to facilitate the approvals. Brenda?
Yes, I will ask them. I have not seen it in the chat box, but if you were awaiting approvals, I saw a number of questions regarding approvals. You can either, let me give options now because we are just about to close this platform. Liz Vera, can they send them through the eTIMS email? Can I share the email?
Yes, I can even share. I'm sharing our email, team support at kra.go.ke. So if you have any pending approvals, if you write to that email address, we will be able to make the approvals so that our taxpayers are well capacitated. So we had begged you a pardon for the delay we had because of some issues in the house where our staff were not in, but that is not an excuse. So we are waiting on you to share the request and then we'll be able to facilitate you. Thank you, Brenda, for sharing that. Thank you. So maybe to our closing remark is that first, I'd like to thank you for attending this sensitization. We know that you are very busy Kenyans, very busy business people. So you spared your time so that you could listen into what we had to say to you today. It has been an encouraging sensitization. We've had lots of discussions here. We tried to answer most of your questions, but if you feel there was something that was not sufficiently answered, you can still write to us. You can still call us on those phone numbers on your screen so that we can be able to address your issues. So just one last thing is that we are encouraging our taxpayers to constantly generate invoices that are TIMS or eTIMS compliant so that we can be able to collect our taxes. And also just a reminder that if you have any complaint or concerns that concerns TIMS or eTIMS, you can physically walk to our office. We are at Kenyatta Avenue, JQuat Towers, 8th floor, and we will be more than happy to help you. Back to you, Brenda. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. Wow, what can I say? Today's session has been quite informative. Thank you for making it very interactive, asking your questions. I know we may not have done justice in terms of responding to all the questions, but we have tried our level best to respond to as many questions as possible. Remember that we have these sensitizations on different tax matters every Thursday. We call it Tax Thursday without fail from 11 a.m. onwards every Thursday. So let's meet yet again next week on Thursday for yet another interactive session to have your questions answered. Remember to follow us on various platforms. I wish to address a question that I have seen come up quite a number of times in our sensitizations. And this one has had to do with the withholding certificates. Yes, let me just see this. Yes, there are some people that have made us know that they've not been receiving the VAT withholding certificates. And I'm informed that especially for payments made in March 2023, yes, there have been some issues in terms of receipt of withholding certificates, and the matter is under resolution. However, you can get in touch with us. This is the team support. Maybe let me stop sharing this now. I hope you've taken a screenshot, a photo, but don't worry. These details are also available on the KRA website. When you just search for eTIMS, you will get the contact details there. You can get in touch with us on our various platforms. I just want to put up our contact details. If you have any query at all, you can ask us through our call center. The details are available on our KRA website. Remember, we are also on social media. On Facebook, we will respond to your questions at Kenya Revenue Authority, that is Facebook. On Twitter, we are at KRA Care, right? And then also on email, you can get us at call center at kra.go.ke. Finally, you can give us a call. Yes, this is customer support. So I just wish to project this very quickly for you. You can get it through our website. I hope it's visible now. Yes, there you go. That is customer support. You can receive your support. You can ask your questions. For making today's session interactive, I appreciate you for joining in. Remember, I did mention that we were streaming live. However, somewhere in the course of the presentation, we're not fully able to stream completely. However, this information is going to be available for us under KRA TV. KRA TV. The link is on the chat box. You should be able to access it. I think let me stop sharing so that I can share the KRA TV link. Any sensitization that we do moving forward will be available under KRA TV. So for those that joined in midway and I thought you had missed out on the earlier session, worry not, we have you covered. All our videos will be available under KRA TV. I'm just getting the link for you so that I can, very well, here it is. So I'm sharing it on the chat box. Please visit. There you go. Okay, AdSales, you can send me a direct message and as to the exact issue, but you should be able to get assistance. Joel Moiruri is saying, today was a great interactive session. We appreciate you. Joshua Adunga saying, thank you, tax education team. It's been tremendous. Thank you very much. Michael Gatoho, he says, thank you, Meshach. Thank you. Spinners is saying, thank you. I think Jen Wairua is saying, very informative presentation. God bless you. Thank you very much, Jen. That's it from me. My name has been Brenda Mutai. I've been your moderator for the day, taking you through today's sensitization. It's lunchtime, unless you invite me over for lunch. I think I want to release us now to just go about our businesses, and let's see you again next week. The link is here. The link I have shared. You will give us a moment to upload it, but okay, sorry. I've seen that it's going directly to Tom. Let me drop yes, there is the link. I've shared the link, yeah? Yes, that is the link for KRA TV. You should be able to get that and more trainings uploaded there. I can see some of us taking notes. Peter, I have posted the link, it's here, but the sensitization will be available a little later. We still have to go and upload it. So give us some time, it should be there. I've shared the link to many times. Okay. Let me see. I think everyone should be receiving the link now. Let me do that again. Thank you. All right. Liz Vera, please pass our appreciation to your team at Jekwa Towers 8th floor. You're doing a wonderful job. Thank you for the support that you have offered us today. Fred Monique is asking for the link. The link is here. I hope you've seen it. Yes, I've shared it many times, but I will not tire. I've posted it a number of times more. That's the link. All right, from the tax education.